George, quick, let's list all the things we have in common with the characters in this film.
Okay, well, we're not both the same race.
We've both fired guns.
We've both smoked weed.
Well, that was fun. Let's start the show.
Okay.
Welcome to Does This Still Work? The podcast looks at movies and asks, does this still work? I'm Joe Dixon.
And I'm George Romacka. And today we're talking about Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels from 1998 and some historical context.
We sure are.
Yep. First, podcasty stuff. We're excited to announce that we've joined the Creator Accountability Network. CAN is a nonprofit dedicated to reducing harassment and abuse through ethical education and a system of restorative accountability. We joined because we care about the safety and well-being of our community members. If you feel our behavior or content has harmed someone, please report it to CAN, either via the reporting form on their website, creatoraccountabilitynetwork.org, or via their hotline at 617-249-4255. They'll help us make it right and avoid repeating that mistake in the future. CAN also needs volunteers from our communities to help with their work, so if you have skills you think would be helpful, or time and a desire to help, please visit their website to find out how you can volunteer. Most importantly, get the word out to other creators who you think would be interested in getting credentialed. Help us build safer communities together. You can reach us at dtswpod@gmail.com, on Facebook, Letterboxd, and on our YouTube channel. Joe is on Blue Sky at joedixon.bsky.social. And Joe is kinda sorta in other places now as an author.
I am an author, ladies and gentlemen. I wrote a book. A whole book. Well, maybe not the longest book, but still a book. It counts. It's got the flap and everything, and the front part and a back part, and it closes and opens. So it's a book, and it's on Amazon. And by the time you hear this, it should be on sale. It's called Dead Boy Roy, and it tells a wonderful story of this unnamed narrator who was told this story by his dog and English teacher. You'll read the book and that'll make more sense. And he tells the story of Zabel, a woman who goes to Venus to help a friend, or a friend wants her to work for him, and turns out he's dead. And then all the adventures that come from that. Yes, it's meant to be a comedy. Ha 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 ha. Please buy it.
I chuckled a couple times.
Sure.
At least.
High praise. I chuckled.
I chuckled more at your comedy book than I did at this movie. I'll just put that out there.
Okay. Well, thank you for bringing that up.
Yep. Please tell your other friends about us and Joe's book, and leave 5-star ratings everywhere. Especially the ones that will buy Joe's book. Definitely tell those ones about us.
Absolutely. Dead Boy Roy by Joe Dixon.
Yep. You can pick what we watch and get extra per episode content by funding us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/DTSWpod.
Now, George, take us back to 1998.
And this is the way it was.
This film is set in London and involves marijuana and a porn shop.
And lots of guns, don't forget that.
Yeah, but I'm not covering them in the history segment.
Okay.
Joe, give us our first headline from the Independent of London, England.
Why the GP may offer you cannabis. Sufferers of MS have long campaigned for the drug to be legal for medicinal uses. Their goal may be in sight.
Weed was making a lot of headlines in 1998, between Canadian Olympic snowboarder Ross Regbagalotti losing his gold medal for testing positive, to New York City Mayor Rudolph I'm Melting Giuliani having 40,000 people arrested over the year in his hindsightedly quixotic zero-tolerance initiative.
And not to throw you off topic, but just to break in for a second, as everyone probably knows by now, New York now has legal weed. So all those people who were arrested, those 40,000, meaningless.
Yep, I'll touch on that.
Okay.
In the UK, the amazingly named Dr. Guy was the first to be granted a legitimate license to grow and research cannabis. And boy, was he happy to talk about it. The article is clipped into show notes, so go read for yourself, but here are some of the fun facts he listed. Marijuana contains more than 400 active chemicals, and 399 of them aren't THC. Our bodies have cannabinoid receptors all the fuck over the place. Now, we actually have two different kinds. We have ones in our brain that are different than the ones in our body. And as the subtitle hinted at, it's the ones in the body that are actually of use to the MS sufferers.
Okay.
Because, like, opioid painkillers don't do shit for MS, but a hit off a joint does.
Okay.
And for all of the fear-mongering, weed is incredibly safe from a toxicology standpoint. For instance, aspirin is fatal at 25 times the max recommended dose. Morphine is fatal at 50 times the max recommended dose. Weed is fatal at 40,000 times the amount the stoniest stoners could consume.
How much water do you have to drink before it's poison? I think it's actually much less than it takes for weed to kill.
It is, I mean, it's hard to compare the two, but there was a woman who died. There was like a radio contest for drinking water, and she drank so much water, she killed herself with it. She didn't drown, but what happens is you dilute everything in your body. Like you flood your body with too much water, and water likes to absorb things, right? Our bodies absorb it to use it, but water itself likes to absorb things. And if you put too much water in your body, it starts leaching the things that you need out of the places that you need it.
Right.
And as we know, at least in the US, I really have no idea about anywhere else, but the whole criminalization of weed thing was doomed because there was just too much money to be made on it, and it only served to ever disenfranchise minority populations.
That was the reason it was illegal. It was get to first the Mexicans and then the blacks. And in fact, during the Nixon administration, his war on drugs was specifically to go after the hippies who liked the acid and were white people, and black people who liked the weed, and Hispanics who liked the weed. Although ultimately everybody ended up liking the weed. But all the drugs, war on drugs stuff was always some sort of racial subtext to it.
And I don't know why I'm thinking about this, but I know that the CIA did a whole thing of making sure that the crack epidemic happened. And I have to believe part of it was because so many people had tried weed that nobody anymore believed any of the fucking fear-mongering about it. So they couldn't really scaremonger about the blacks using weed. So they pushed crack because there's no redeeming qualities to that shit.
By the way, do you know if it's now legal in London? I don't know.
I have no idea. I would assume so. I would assume it probably became legal in London shortly before it became legal here anywhere. If I had to. Just because London is somewhat less prudish about things than the United States is. And we're about to talk about that some.
I think you're making quite the assumption there, but okay.
Well, about some things at least. Moving on, one of our characters operates out of an ostensibly legitimate porn shop. What was happening with porn in the UK in 1998? Joe, give us our second headline, also from The Independent.
Porn pulls and viewers for Channel 5. Is that supposed to be funny? Porn pulls? A lot of pulling when it comes to porn?
I mean, it wasn't not meant to be a double entendre. Even though the UK has its share of puritanical stupidity, they are, far and away, less squeamish about sex than the US is. In 1998, their network TV Channel 5, so not cable, available to anyone, had been operating for a year and had been showing on Friday nights one adult film per week. And by adult film, I'm talking about uncensored regular movies that had nudity in them. Then they bought two shows from a US content company, Hotline and Compromising Situations. Both are what we call in the US Skinamax type shows. Thin on plot, heavy on boobs, butts, and grunting, but showing no frontally nudity below the belt stuff.
Sort of soft core.
Yes, but with more plot than straight up porn.
Right.
And they began airing these on 2 other weeknights. Of course, the prudes were losing their mind and think of the childrening. Dawn Avery, head of programming for Channel 5, pointed out that they don't advertise those shows, and that their viewership was up across the board in all time slots.
Mm-hmm.
So,
not the only thing that was up.
Yeah. And I'll point out that it's articles like this that only exist because of the prudes. That's all the advertising Channel 5 would need.
Indeed. Cannabis is not legal in London.
Well, George is wrong about shit fairly often.
Let's see. In London, cannabis remains illegal for recreational use and is classified as a Class B drug. I mean, technically, on a federal level, weed is illegal here as well, but on a state level, you can use it, which is dumb. Should be federally legal. I don't know why that's not a thing. It's very strange. I mean, what is the point? The states can have it, but the federal government doesn't? I don't get it.
Because no senator wants to, nobody in Congress wants to go on record voting to legalize marijuana. On a state legislature level, that's way less of a big deal. But on national legislature level, with the kinds of assholes that we have running the fucking place right now, they probably have people in their home states that are like, fucking vote for this because I'm set to make a mint. I'm going to capitalism the living shit out of this thing. But they just don't want to go on record saying yes.
Guess that theory is as good as any other.
Which is to say that they have bad reasons for things. All right, Joe, let's talk about Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Let's do that. Okay, the person behind this is directed and written by Guy Ritchie. And for the podcast, we've seen his work in Snatch, which this is basically almost a repeat of. And I've seen his work in The Gentleman and Wrath of Man.
And there's a lot of actors that are in both of them, too.
Oh, yes. He likes to bring his friends back, which is nice.
But real quick, to be clear, this came before Snatch.
Yes, this is first and then Snatch was next. IMDb says, when 4 small-time criminals lose a rigged poker game against a London kingpin, he gives them 1 week to settle their enormous debt. Was that actually a poker game? I thought it was some other form.
I have no idea what they were playing, but I'm going to nitpick on it. Only one of those 4 lost the game.
Well, technically, no one really lost because the guy was cheating, but yes.
But only one of them was playing the game.
Then you're right.
They all financed it, but only one played it.
Playing it's true. YouTube says, a streetwise card shark ends up owing a fortune to a powerful London crime boss. But in his scheme to get the money and save his fingers, he's a few tricks up his sleeve. I thought I read that wrong, but in fact, that's what it says. He's a few tricks up his sleeve.
Yes.
Is that a London saying? I don't know.
Kind of. It's a contraction of he has. Like, it's valid, but almost nobody ever uses it.
I see.
For exactly the reason that you just stumbled over
it. All right, let's get into the many characters this movie has.
One thing real quick. I looked at the Wikipedia for this movie, and it describes the kid as a card sharp, which is apparently the same thing as a card shark. Like, that kind of person has been described as both throughout history.
Okay.
So it's just a weird, you could use a K or a P there. Who cares?
All right. So characters. Eddie is played by Nick Moran.
And I've seen him in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows parts 1 and 2.
You know, speaking of Wikipedia, if I had, well, I guess it's also on IMDb, but I also looked up Wikipedia and obviously on IMDb, because I initially spelled his name as E-D-D-I-E, but apparently it's E-D-D-Y. Not that you can tell when you say it, but...
No.
I was like, Eddie? Oh, I didn't know that there was a different way to spell Eddie, actually. It's the first time I've seen that. Tom is played by Jason Fleming. And for the podcast, we've seen him in The Social Network. And both George and I have seen him in Rob Roy, From Hell, and The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. And I've seen him in X-Men First Class. Bacon is played by Jason Statham. And this is his film debut.
Mm-hmm.
For the podcast, we've seen him in the aforementioned Snatch. And I've also seen him in Wrath of Man, Fast X, and F9, The Fast Saga.
And I've seen him in The Transporter. And he has played that character in pretty much everything, like that same kind of character. I don't know what it is about his physiology that makes him perfect for that kind of character. That sort of British, incredulous, weirdly competent in some niche thing guy.
Well, I mean, in the first two films we've seen him in for the podcast, he's not especially violent. He only gets violent in his action movies later, which we haven't seen for the podcast. Although I have seen, like, what did I say? I saw him in Wrath of Man or Fast X. By the way, speaking of, I was going to say this before. I assume you don't have the answer to this, but maybe the public does. Ladies and gentlemen, when are they supposed to bring out the next? Because the last, I guess Fast X was the last one, Fast 10, was the last one they made. They were supposed to do a sequel to it. It ended on a cliffhanger. And nothing's it hasn't been released. Like, what are they waiting for? Everyone to become 50? Like, this is like taking a long time. People are going to be driving the cars and then coming out in wheelchairs. I don't understand what the deal is. Soap is played by Dexter Fletcher.
And he's the cook of the group. He is the most straightforward, like, on the level guy of the group. I don't know why they named the chef Soap and the other guy Bacon.
Yeah, that is weird. Winston.
Although, it's nice to know that he I guess he washes his hands, because he's a chef.
Yes. Maybe that's the main reason. He cleans his hands. Winston is played by Stephen McIntosh. Big Chris is played by Vinnie Jones. This is also his film debut. And we recently saw him again in, say it with me, Snatch.
Oh, you wanted me to say that with you. Sorry.
No, that's fine. And also, we've seen him in Swordfish. And I've seen him in X-Men The Last Stand. So one was in First Class and the other was in Last Stand. Barry the Baptist is played by Lenny McLean.
And he's the most Thanos-looking human being ever. Like, he only had 6 credits, and this was his last film before he died. But if he had lived to the Avengers thing, we wouldn't need to put Josh Brolin in makeup. We could have just painted this guy purple.
Fair enough. And for the podcast, we've seen him in The Fifth Element. Hatchet Harry is played by P.H. Moriarty.
I could have sworn I'd seen him in shit.
But evident you didn't.
Nope.
Dog is played by Frank Harper. And I've seen him in the Name of the Father. Quick background on In the Name of the Father, George. I don't know if you know, this is based on a real story of an Irish family who got accused of terrorism. Turns out they were not terrorists, but they accused of working with the IRA and they went to jail for many years before it turns out that, hey, they weren't guilty. But by the time they were finally released, the father died. And that was the son said, I'm going to fight, for my father. And in the name of the father, I'm going to fight these sort of atrocities. And these done against the Irish by the British. So, see, racism can come in every sort of form. When you don't have black people to pick on, white folks will just pick on other white folks.
Oh, yeah, racism is a subset of xenophobia.
Indeed. Nick the Greek is played by Stephen Marcus. And for the podcast, we've seen him in My Beautiful Laundrette.
Mm-hmm.
Who the hell was he in that? I said, what, he was in that? I don't know who he played.
I don't really remember too much of anybody in that movie. That was a long time ago.
That was a while ago. JD is played by Sting. And I've seen him in Doom, the 1984 version, and Quadrophenia.
And I've seen him in The Adventures of Baron Munchausen.
Munchausen. Is he the one who gave us the disease?
No.
You know what I'm talking about, right? Munchausen's disease?
Munchausen syndrome. And yes, I know it. Sting did not give that to us.
Okay. This is the plot, ladies and gentlemen. If you've seen Snatch, you've seen this movie already. If you've seen a Tom and Jerry cartoon, you've seen at least a version of this film. Same can be said for the entire film work of the Three Stooges. Does that mean it was bad? No. Does that mean it was good? Oh, God, no. It doesn't mean that either. This is a story of 4 small-time criminals operating out of London. Their names are Eddie, Tom, Soap, and Bacon. Other than looks, these guys are pretty interchangeable. Quick question, George. Is there a personality difference between these 4 guys? Did I miss it?
Well, we talked about it a little bit. Soap is the more sort of squeamish about criminal activities one. Like, he's really not... He has a legit job as a chef, and he's good at it, and he likes that job, and he doesn't want to fuck with that. Only two of them have fathers in the movie, I think.
No, only one has a father. Eddie has a father.
Yeah, only Eddie has the father.
That's not a personality. We've all had fathers.
There was a guy from Snatch that I don't think we mentioned. Whatever. I don't fucking care.
Okay, let's get back to the summary then.
They're not. No, I could say they have different personalities.
I didn't. They seem interchangeable to me. With, hey, I can play cards and I'm the one who cooks, but I don't know if those are really personalities per se. In any case, the gang put together 100,000 pounds so that Eddie can buy into a high-stakes card game. Why this is seen as a good way to invest $100,000, I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you why, because the movie tells you why.
Oh.
Because Eddie had a natural ability to, quote-unquote, make cards transparent. He could read tells on anybody, even if they didn't have tells, because, like, everybody has reactions, and he was just really well tuned into reading them.
I still think there's a better way to invest $100,000.
Oh, absolutely. But that's why these 4 thought that was a good idea.
Anyway, the game is run by Hatchet Harry, and it is rigged. Something you think these guys would just assume. You're playing cards with a known crime boss. Of course he cheats. Naturally, Eddie loses. This results in him, and by extension his friends, owing $500,000 to Harry. It's expected to be paid within a week. Is that crazy? Not exactly, since Harry doesn't really want the money. He's actually interested in Eddie's father's bar. Harry even sends his enforcer, Big Chris, to the bar to threaten the dad. But it turns out that father, JD is his name, is not impressed by Big Chris's threats, and even tells him to fuck off. Besides cheating
and
the card
Big Chris lets him. Once.
Yeah, Chris is okay, fine.
He says once. You get to do that once.
Mm. Listen, I can assure you he was never going to lay hands on JD. You know why?
Because the script didn't tell him to.
Because he's played by Sting. Sting is a bigger star. This is this guy's film debut. This is goddamn Sting. You weren't going to touch him. Besides cheating at card games, it's like freaking, Brad Pitt wasn't going to lose the fights in Snatch. Nor was his face going to be messed up, even though he was a bare-knuckle fighter. The most handsome bare-knuckle fighter there ever was. Anyway, besides cheating at card games, Harry has other interests. One of them is a set of 2 expensive antique shotguns that are up for auction. Of course, Harry has no intention of putting in a bid for those items. Instead, he has another of his thugs, Barry the Baptist, hire 2 fellows who normally rob post offices, Gary and Dean are their names, to steal the guns. The pair pull the job off, but with a hitch. They steal the wrong weapons. They don't think the antiques are of use and take them for themselves to sell. This is where we bring in yet another character, and that's a fence by the name of Nick the Greek. And he does sell those guns. To who? We will get back to that.
Mm-hmm.
Needless to say, Barry is pissed off about not getting his firearms and threatens the boys with dismemberment if they don't get those antiques back. Although, in their defense, it was his responsibility to give them the information they needed. George, did I miss something? Why didn't he just give them a picture of the weapons he wanted? He had them.
Because that would have not resulted in drama and misunderstandings that could be played later.
Ah, of course.
That's why. It is very much because the script says so.
For sure. Moving on, Eddie, remember him, the card guy? Overhears his next-door neighbors planning a heist of a group of drug dealers. He and the rest of the gang get the bright idea of robbing the criminals who are going to rob the drug dealers. To facilitate his plan, Tom buys some shotguns from Nick. Those are the shotguns Harry had wanted. So, anyway, the guys who robbed the drug dealers have a few hiccups but manage to run off with a duffel bag full of cash and cannabis. They are then robbed by Eddie and his pals. Eddie's group arranges for Nick to fence the drugs to yet another gangster, and that guy is the film's main black representation. His name is Rory. Not knowing they are his drugs, Rory agrees to buy the weed. But when Rory discovers this was his own product stolen and sold back to him, he becomes enraged. He threatens Nick into giving him the address of Eddie and his friends so he and his gang can kill them. Why he decides to join his gang when he decides to kill these other guys, I don't know. Isn't it the point of being a gang leader is that you don't have to be in that sort of dirty work?
Isn't the point of being in charge of anything so that you don't have to be the one doing the work?
Just seems strange to me.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on. Rory and his gang get into a shootout with the weed robbing gang. This ends with almost everybody involved dead. You might ask, wait a minute. How is there a shootout without anybody calling the cops? Isn't this movie set in the UK where guns are heavily regulated? Yes, you're right. And even if the story took place in Peru, somebody would have called the police with the amount of firepower that goes off in this film. But nobody does. Why? Because, say it, George.
The script says so.
That's why. 2 people survive the shootout, a guy named Dog and another person named Winston. Winston leaves with the drugs, while Doug runs off with the shotguns and cash. But surprise, Big Chris shows up and takes both. Following Big Chris are Gary and Dean, who are still trying to get those guns back. All these people have reputations, so it's strange that no one recognizes anyone else or wonders if by stealing something they are possibly stepping into other people's territory, but whatever. Big Chris keeps the money but returns the shotguns to Harry. Big Chris keeps the money but returns the shotguns to Harry. When he goes to his car, Dog is there and holding Chris's son at knife point. I didn't mention it before, but Chris brings his son along with him when he commits crimes. Not sure how it works in London, but I'm fairly confident social services would have taken this child away a long time ago, but I'm not getting into that.
But if nobody calls the cops for shootouts, nobody's calling CPS either.
Fair enough. Meanwhile, Dean rushes into Harry's office to get the antique shotguns and is shot dead. In response, Gary murders Harry and then, by accident, kills Barry. However, before he shoots Barry, Gary is hit in the back with an axe. In the aftermath, Eddie, Tom, Soap, and Bacon show up. This is the second time they walk in on a post-massacre. They had also found their place shot up with a dead drug mob. While they look this over, Big Chris deliberately crashes his car into the back of their car to knock out Dog. Dog would have cut that kid's head off if that happened in real life, but this isn't real life. So Chris disarms him, then beats Doug to death in broad daylight while he is in front of a building where people have been shot with guns. Guns make a lot of noise, but still no cops. But Chris then retrieves the duffel bag of cash from the unconscious Eddie. He finds Tom in the office with his dead boss. He allows Tom to leave with the shotguns. Okay, this all wraps up with Eddie and his gang free from debt and prison. Big Chris is free of his now dead boss Harry, and the boys end up calling Tom to not dispose of the shotguns after telling him he should dispose of the shotguns, because previously they didn't realize the guns were worth lots of money. George, I left out a lot because I don't have all goddamn day. What would you like to add?
Yeah, you covered the bases pretty well on this one.
Okay, then.
Like, there's just not much, and you asked me a bunch of questions in the middle of it, so.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, George. Eddie, Bacon, Tom, and Soap act like a small, highly codependent unit under immense pressure. Did their camaraderie flash you back to your relationship you had in the Navy with your fellow Navy men?
No.
Seamen, as they are called.
Sailors, as they are called, asshole.
You're also called seamen, aren't you? I was trying to make a joke.
E3s are the rank of seamen.
Oh, you've told me this before. I'm sorry, I forget.
Yes.
So it did flash you back to the good old days of Navy.
No, these people acted nothing like a military organization. They acted, okay, if we're going to draw that comparison, this group of people is to a military organization as ICE is to a legitimate police force or a legitimate anything. You know what? I don't have this analogy down.
Yeah,
these guys are about as professional as ICE. That's what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I just meant more in the sense that they kind of tease each other and they make little snappy comebacks and that sort of thing. I don't know. I had to come up with a question, and that's what I came up with.
I feel like you'd get that more living in New York than I would get that on a ship.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Guy Ritchie's world is entirely dominated by aggressive, posturing men. Do you view this film as a celebration of traditional manhood, toxic masculinity, or neither?
Neither. Guy Ritchie is part of a film movement called
crap. No, he's not crap.
Hypermedia. Like hypermedia. It involves fast motion and lots of interconnected plot lines. Like, that's just the kind of story he likes to tell. And it's I'd argue it's easier to write stories like that when you have idiots like the people in this movie to write for, like, as characters.
He clearly wrote the characters to be idiots, just said, yeah, it'd be easier for him to tell the story without question. Because there's no way half the stuff people do in this film, or even in Snatch, would happen if people had even the slightest bit of brain cells. Like, this is a bad idea. Why are we doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Also, I believe also all these people would be in prison. These were not the smartest folks. It would have long time ago. They've been behind bars. Anyway, as a father, what did you think of the two dads in this film? Now, I remember
that's where I got the idea that I had two dads, from the summary, from the discussion, because I read ahead.
Right, because remember, Big Chris has a kid, and then there's...
that's right, and Eddie's dad, right. Yeah, okay. Eddie's dad is actually a better dad. Actually, they're both not... The fathering part of what they're doing is actually pretty decent fathering. Eddie's dad's kind of a hard nose, but also his kid's kind of a fuck up, so they go hand in hand. And Big Chris, his kid is a little criminal, just like Dad. But within that context, he's doing great.
Well, yeah, he seems clean and well fed.
So
what he does for school, but yeah, I guess he's okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's going to the school of hard knocks. What do you want? But I don't know. They're not the worst. They're actually not the worst fathers we've seen for this podcast. Here's looking at you, Precious, again.
That's going to be a recurring theme. All these fathers are not as toxic as the ones we've seen earlier in our podcasting careers.
I mean, you have Precious, and then right above that is Robin Williams' character in Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh, wow. Above that? I think... Well, what's the scale here? What do you mean? How is he above?
He's slightly less bad.
Okay.
Than the dad in Precious.
I think he's considerably less bad. I think Precious does horrific things. I'm just
grabbing random dads and putting him in a list.
Mrs. Doubtfire is bad, but not on that level, for God's sake. I don't think anything beats Precious about that. Anyway. I'm not a music person like you. What do you think of the soundtrack?
If the movie wasn't annoying me so much, I probably would have been able to enjoy the soundtrack. But I can't remember a single fucking song from it, because the movie was annoying me.
That's interesting, because you seem to remember it from Snatch.
Snatch didn't bother me as much as this one.
Okay.
Which I guess implies that he got better at writing these kinds of stupid movies.
All right, that's all I got. Your turn.
All right, this is the second Guy Ritchie film we're seeing for the podcast. Has his style grown on you at all?
I was, like you, kind of annoyed by this film, but if only because, again, it felt like I'd seen this before, and it just too similar to Snatch. I have seen not that many Guy Ritchie's films. I did see, as I mentioned when we did the credits, I did see The Gentleman, which I did like, but I'm not that as familiar with his stuff, so I wouldn't say it's grown on me at all. if anything, it's graded on me because, like I said, I just recently seen it and I go, I just saw this already. So, and it really is almost beat for beat the same movie. Oh, these are criminals. They're all a bunch of dopes. We have a ton of characters all running around, messing things up, killing each other. Only a few end up alive at the end of the film. The end. And I guess we're all supposed to celebrate. I mean, I don't know. I wonder, like, I'll be perfectly frank. When I wrote my book, I'm not writing real characters. I freely admit that. I'm just writing it for the laughs. This is meant to be a funny, dumb book. I want to. Does Guy Ritchie also go into this with that? Because he can't really think he's writing characters. These are not actual people that I can.
I don't think there's any resemblance to real people in this, but I can see characters in this, like the two idiots,
Dean and what's his face, the two guys who used to rob post offices, but for some reason get hired to rob the guns.
They have a pretty good chemistry together as actors and characters go, and like when one of them gets killed, the other one loses his fucking mind for killing his bromance guy. Like,
yeah, I have to say, of all the characters in this film, I actually would have enjoyed just staying with them the whole picture. I like them. I don't know why. You're right. They had chemistry. I enjoyed their friendship far more than I did these four guys, Eddie, Bacon, Tom.
They seemed like more genuine friends with each other than these other guys who were just kind of trying to machismo each other. Like trying to... It's almost like staying friends with somebody on a dare. Like you're friends with them because not being friends with them would be worse, not because being friends with them makes anything better.
I definitely agree. Their friendship seemed far more realistic and authentic, and there's more chemistry there than with the four guys. They really Guy Ritchie really messed that up. He should have made those guys the lead, but then he would have to rewrite the whole movie.
Yep. So
sorry, I was about to ask that question. This for you.
So that kind of answers the question of, did you believe the relationships between these characters? What about Eddie and his dad? How did you feel about that?
It's interesting you thought they was a good dad. I thought he seemed rather indifferent to his son, but you're right. Maybe he's trying to teach him a lesson. His son's a fuck up. But why is your son a fuck up? That doesn't reflect well on your parenting skills, quite frankly. The dad seems.
I mean, we at least see the dad. Where's mom?
I just assumed she was dead. I mean, from the way they're acting, I just assumed that she'd passed.
Which, I mean, that could also, result in fuck up.
Sure, fair.
Doesn't have to be bad parenting.
I guess.
This is only our second Jason Statham flick. But again, to be clear, this was Jason Statham's first movie. We saw him in Snatch, which was years later. And a couple...
only like 2 or 3 years.
A couple of years and a couple of movies later. In both this movie and Snatch, he plays a fairly normal person, not an action star. Why do you suppose they suddenly decided he should be a tough guy later?
I do wonder about that because you kind of mentioned this as well. He doesn't look different. He looks exactly the same. Every single film. Short hair, basically bald, shaved bald. His build isn't particularly big or small. He's a normal-sized guy. He's tall, or at least he seems tall on film, but beyond that, I wonder. I guess it's like Liam Neeson. He starred in one action film. It was a hit, so now they just kept pitting them in action pictures.
Doesn't look like an action star, but he keeps ending up there, yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise, why? Because he looks exactly the same. Why is he suddenly just a schlub or just a normal person here? And the next film, he's like kicking ass and beating up every person he runs into.
But it's not just kicking ass and beating up everybody he runs into. He does that, but he also does that almost with like a disdain for having to do that. And like with this sort of like, the fuck is going on? Like this weird incredulity about everything in his character's life. Like, I'm thinking, I don't know why I'm thinking about it that way, but it's like, it's a very strong, not silent, but snarky type.
It's interesting. I don't get anything from his action characters, and I've seen a couple of his action films. It's just basically, it's the same character. I know you don't think much of him, but actually it's just basically a version of the sort of stuff Clint Eastwood used to play when he was a much younger man.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad comparison. He's like a British Clint Eastwood in not Westerns.
And in not Westerns, yeah.
Which of the and we kind of talked about this, but which of the interconnected groups did you find most compelling?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I already mentioned that the two post office boys. I don't know why. I really like them. I like them as a group. Not as a group, but as a team. And yeah, there seemed to be real emotion there. I don't know if it's just the acting or just the way the vibe these guys gave off. But
the shorter one reminded me of Paul Simon. Like a chubby Paul Simon.
I can see that. Yeah.
The tall guy, not at all like Art Garfunkel, though.
No, the guy's not at all like Art Garfunkel. So let's get into the conclusions here. What did you think? Does this still work?
Yes, it annoyed me. And yes, it's stupid. Yes, I think it works. I think it works for exactly what it is, which is that kind of movie. And it's not like we have to concede that movies don't have to map to reality.
No, definitely.
So I can't say that it not mapping to reality it makes it not work. It doesn't pretend to map to reality. And in that context, it's internally consistent. So I can't ding it on that. Like, the most annoying thing was on the cliffhanger that it ended on.
Yeah, I don't know why it needed to end that way. It was just, I don't. With them all calling, hey, we got to call him. They were fighting each other. Who gets to call him and say, hey, don't throw the guns away after telling him to throw the guns away.
Yeah. But I do think it actually works.
I would have to agree with you. It's fine. I mean, the filmmaking is fine. Story moves along fast enough, I guess. There's plenty I would have cut out if I were an editor. But, yeah, I mean, it's not... I can see people be entertained by it. I've seen some reviews of normal people, regular people posting about it. I'm like, oh, it's great, it's fantastic. So for a certain type of person who just likes this sort of film, yeah. Guy Ritchie makes a certain type of film that appeals to a certain type of person. And for that type of person, this is their film.
Mm-hmm. This is, and like we talked about it during Snatch, it's Tarantino adjacent.
Very Tarantino adjacent.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Tarantino tends to comment on other actors and filmmakers. I wonder if he's ever said shit about Guy Ritchie. I wouldn't be surprised if he did. He seems comes across as a real asshole.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, that's it. So we both agree it works. God help us.
Yep.
But Guy Ritchie, have someone else write your movies.
Well, not God help us.
Person.
God save the Queen.
There is no queen anymore. God save the king.
Sure.
Guy, hire a scriptwriter. Anyway, George, what's up next?
Next week, we're talking about Scarface from 1983.
Oh, it's been a long time since we had a brown-faced movie.
Short Circuit, I believe.
Yeah. I think it's since Short Circuit. Have we had any after Short Circuit? I don't remember. Yeah, it's Al Pacino playing a Hispanic. Well, technically he's playing Cuban. There are white Cubans. So I guess you can make an argument, hey, it's not that far-fetched. It's not like he really puts on brown makeup, although I think he is a bit tan in the movie, if I remember correctly. And not that anyone cares. People just love Scarface because it involves a drug dealer shooting up a bunch of people. People were like that sort of thing. That's why he gets to have T-shirts and such. Posters about him.
Almost 3-hour movie.
I didn't realize it was that long. That's weird because I've seen both this...
2 hours, 50 minutes.
Wow, okay. Good times ahead. Scarface is based on another movie, also called Scarface, starring Edward G. Robinson, which was not almost 3 hours long, back in the 40s, I think, and there was controversy when that film came out, not because Edward G. Robinson was pretending to be a Cuban, he was playing an Italian mobster, and he was Italian, so it all worked out well. I think Edward G. Robinson's Italian. Maybe not. Robinson's not an Italian name, so maybe he wasn't. Anyway, the point is, they made a remake of that Scarface for the 1980s. And I've seen both of them, and I'll compare and contrast when we discuss it next week. So that's it for this episode. I'm Joe Dixon. Thanks for listening.
And I'm George Romaka. Thanks for listening indeed, because if a podcast drops and there's nobody around to hear it, it's just another collection of ones and zeros that doesn't matter.
You've been listening to Does This Still Work? Produced by Joe Dixon and George Ramacca.
This content is CAN credentialed, which means you can report instances of harassment, abuse, or other harm on their hotline at 617-249-4255 or on their website at creatoraccountabilitynetwork.org.
The hosts can be reached via social media, email, or the contact page at dtswpod.com. Be good to yourself and others, because that still works.
Dog is played by Frank Harper. And for the podcast, I've seen him in the name.
For the podcast, you have not.
I have not seen him for the podcast.
Dear Miss Manners, for me, receiving even a good book is tantamount to getting an assignment. Dear Carolyn, I went on 2 dates with this guy who was very nice and with whom I hit it off really well. Then he started drinking. Dear Annie, my wife and I are friends with Jim and Mary, whom we see regularly, but only on a limited basis.